So this is definitely not something you see every day. The IRS apologizing to taxpayers for the data breach that was caused by a rogue contractor that they had. This is a case that came, I had been following it a bit previously, but it was interesting to see today for the releases for tax professionals, them actually apologizing to people that were impacted by this. So I think it'll be really interesting to see because in particular with within the ERC program, you have a lot of taxpayers, thousands of other Americans. You know, we're in the thousands camp of people who basically have their returns held hostage right now due to the fact that the IRS didn't really request enough data with the filings for the ERC claims, and so has had to do the moratorium and has had to suspend processing because they just don't have the information to really assess what are good claims or not, which I posted in a previous video, which I'll put in the comments. And so it's interesting to see that it took this court case for them to apologize, and I wonder if we're going to see the same thing in a couple of years when all the chips finally fall for the Employee Retention Credit Program and the way that the administration of it has been handled. I wonder if we'll see any kind of apology to the taxpayers who basically have been held hostage as part of this process. And I wonder about that just because so much of the narrative has been around the bad actors in the space, which there totally were. I see a lot of that all the time. But for the people who weren't, the fact that there were no protections put in for them makes it, it doesn't really make an excuse. You know, the fact that some people are trying to steal doesn't mean that the people who aren't trying to steal should be punished. So interesting to see. I thought it was nice for them to put this blurb out, and, you know, it's nice that they're taking steps to improve taxpayer safety and security. And honestly, I'm actually shocked when you consider the volume of information that the IRS has to deal with on a daily basis. The fact that this happens so infrequently is actually really impressive. So I think the level of public outrage on this kind of a thing, obviously they have to figure out and correct it so things like this can't happen in the future. But for the sheer volume of data that the IRS is handling, this is actually pretty amazing that it's this few. You know, you don't really hear stories like this very often from them. So hopefully with the budget increases, we'll see even fewer. But I thought this was an interesting little thing to highlight